Another workshop. Sorry we're late,
Bonjour.
guys. We just came out of a French meeting with
There
a
you
client.
go. Yes, it was a close one.
Yeah, we closed it, so that's why we were late. We were trying to close on an opportunity and we won it. So, um, yes.
Yes.
And so
So
it was
you're
worth.
next.
Yes, you guys are next. Sorry for us being 30 minutes late. Um, but that's, we were with a client, and that's the level of service that we provide. We don't want, we want to be there for our clients and we listen to them. And so that's the difference here. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're here, I know we are 35 minutes late, about to be 36 minutes late. So this, we're continuing our growth cycle. We're going to make sure that we complete this presentation. So this month we have covered the software development pitfalls and their ROI. We've explored emerging technologies in AI, um, and we're going to master governance and risk management and compliance. That's next week, in the next two
Next week.
weeks. Yep,
Yep.
awesome.
And the next week.
So please join us live for our Techno Happy Hour. We still have EV DevTech workshop here, but this is now called our Techno Happy Hour. We do this every Tuesday and Thursdays from 11:30 a.m. To 12:30 a.m. Today we were fashionably late, and we are going to do it from now for an hour. You can watch us on YouTube, LinkedIn, or Twitch. We're trying to grow our community on Facebook and Instagram big enough to be able, and TikTok, to be able to do the live streams there. So please follow us on social media so that we can be able to grow into those spaces and be able to um, to put the show there as well. Right? It's another channel. And so we're trying to reach as many folks as possible and provide them our knowledge and give them this event. So give me 1 second. I'm going to do a quick quality check. Laura, if you would please um, continue with our topic for this session.
So, yes, this session we're going to list a couple of use cases of AI in business in general. So, there has been some trends of, or mostly for most of us that have been using AI in some sort of way, from email filtering to of the cluster mess that you could have personally to exploring content and new ideas. There are four highly um, use cases for AI. Then, how do you determine the optimal AI architecture? Is I wanted to portray it over there, the evolution of how AI has changed from one simple input and output to what we have now, generation, and we wanted to give you an introduction to that. And what is at stake there? We've had specific use cases in the work that we have as potentials for use cases in which you have a lot of constraint, but if you have enough data to fit into the system, you will.
Oh, you're cutting in and out here, Laura, for me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. So, lastly, there are some consideration of when you'll be able to use this RAG. It's funny because
Are you going to be a
oh,
rag queen?
yeah. I saw this video from a Google Cloud presenter, which was a great example of, and he literally put a rag to. This is not what we're going to be talking about, but I'm just going to show you so that uh, you would know what that means. So this is how AI is changing industries basically, and how you could change your own business for your own benefit too. So let's discuss that.
Awesome. So I am just now wrapping up um, our QA talk here. Let me see. Our, just
Now
want to make
AI
sure
is
that
a
all of
wide topic, right?
yes, extremely wide. Um, I mean, it's just so useful in any type of context because now it's intelligence. And
Mm-hmm.
in anything that we do, if it involves us, it involves some form of intelligence. And I know that last week we spoke about there's intelligence and then there's organic intelligence, which is us, right? The humans
Mm-hmm.
and animals and species and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And then there's artificial intelligence, which is human made, you know,
Us.
it was man made intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so this is what we're talking about, right? We're talking about, okay, how do we build artificial intelligence? How do we use it? What are the methodologies to use it? We're going to talk about the architecture of artificial intelligence and which, which way to go, right? Um, the foundations are all the same. Um, a lot of data is still needed. We talked, the foundation of what we talked about in the previous sessions about where you need machine learning and what's machine learning. It's just a mask for statistics. And then there's the deep research and there's the RAG model is really just a search model. So we'll talk about that today and things that we need to consider. And AI is going to change everything, right? So I'll provide my few
Yeah.
tidbits here. It will change the world. We have a lot of this is what the world has been talking about for a past couple um, the past 2 years now, um, and we've been on the forefront of it all, right? We've been following along. We've been shifting strategies, changing strategies, observing and analyzing, um,
Adapting.
adapting. That's what we've been doing, adapting to how it's going to change. I have a very long term vision as to how AI is going to change the world. Um, and all I'm doing now is I have multiple examples as to how it can come out. So now I'm mainly focused on the what's happening now. What are the decisions that are being made now? Because I know all of the outputs, which we're about to show, right? Um, right. So it's all about improving the output. And so I know all of the variable outputs for the future, or at least I've identified a few future outputs as to how AI is going to change the world and change a lot of the industries and how that's going to play out. Um, of course, nothing is for sure. Everything is being, because I'm not an oracle, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know what the future actually holds. So now that I have multiple visions as to what the future might look like, the possible outputs, um, then now I'm more focused on what is being done now to essentially fine tune my output to realign with what are the processes and inputs that are being done at this moment to come out and what are now the new potential outputs, right? Or which output is it going to align to from there, right? Everything's about a strategy, and everything that we do as humans, everything that we do in the universe has it's a cause, reaction, right? Cause and
Yeah.
effect, and everything has consequences, and that's what we're doing, right? Like that's what we're trying to position ourselves in a way where um, we are successful. I'm not. I need to, and this is something that is a problem with me. I'm naturally an introvert. I'm naturally I'm a nerd, right? I like to be in front of a computer. There's a reason why I like computers. They don't talk back to me, and well, now they do, right? With AI, now they do talk back to me. But um, it's it's a very it's a very peaceful work. I like working for the most part alone. I like researching and reading, and then coming back to the team and sharing what I've learned and the knowledge and sharing that knowledge. um, but it's I I probably need to be more vocal about what the potential future outputs should be, and start sharing a lot of um, those
Your notes.
predictions.
Yep.
Yeah. um,
I could use all of your ideas. I'm always looking for the post to make.
I know. So that's another reason why I feel like we
But this
need
is
to.
this is how we do it. This is we created, just so everybody knows. We planned this workshop how many weeks ago? 2 months ago.
2 months ago, yeah.
We are content sitting there because we wanted to build up the steps that could take us here. So that's strategy right there.
Exactly, right? So I realized that, look, if I can't make myself do, naturally just share my thoughts and stuff like that. That's why I've created a medium and stuff like that, to kind of try to get my thoughts out there, to the world. And then this is another reason for this as well, right? And it makes me twice a week, makes me sit down in front of you guys and share everything, that I know. But who cares about what I know? It's really about how we can help each other. So let's move on. Um, so there's only there's more than these four
Yeah,
use
there's
cases,
more.
but yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot with these four, and a lot of these kind of, in a way, agents in any agentic AI and stuff like that would probably sit in these four, right? They're either helping
Mm-hmm.
write, in some form of communication and alerting, or they're monitoring, a system, or monitoring, some issues, and then writing, providing that communication assistance where, hey, this happened, right? And it sends out that message.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Content summarization and transformation. So for me, transformation stands for standardization, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have content come in, you have the input of that content, and then AI transforms that content or data into a way that's going to standardize into
Good use.
the
Yep.
output systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
this is great. I love this because now you're automating backend processes for data processing. You have the document conversions. Like, hey, it's an image, but you need to extract data from it, so you have to, extract the text, extract all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and then how do you do that, right? And then you have, right, with the document conversion and stuff like that. Then you also have the information extraction.
I can
Knowledge.
I
You go ahead.
can I can almost sense this word that I've been reading the most, which we haven't really talked about, but is mining, right?
Oh, data mining.
So yeah, so well, I was this categorization were really great, but this just I was just thinking ahead of where are we going to be? How are we going to be educating clients after this, right? So we would need to go case by case on each of the client's profiles to see, look, you have this, and how much of these can be really mined, and use that word for that, because I believe clients are the ones that know. But we need to extract that. So how do we tell them
Yeah.
that?
So that's a very important, because again, AI is the most important thing is the data. Well, what happens when you don't have the data, right? That's where the data mining comes into play. You got to go look for it. You got to go
Mm-hmm.
find it. You got to go. extract it from somewhere. You got to go mine it from somewhere. So that's where data mining comes from, is that you don't have, so you've created a prototype, it it gets you 40-50% of the way there, but if you want to get to 100%, you need so much more data. And
Mm-hmm.
what happens when your business isn't big enough for that data, right? What happens if your
Exactly.
business doesn't have the volume to be able to get that data? Well, now that's where data mining comes into play. Do we have to create simulations? Do we have to
Mm-hmm.
create um, do we have to go buy the data, right? Do we have to go
Mm-hmm.
look for
Trends.
a data repository so that we can
Mm-hmm.
go pull that? Do we have to create bots to go and fetch that data out from the internet? Very, very interesting stuff. And that's actually a great segue into number three, which is knowledge retrieval and search, right? So, how do you provide, power research and development with AI-driven insights, right? And how do you provide that fast data access where, hey, I want to know where we are on this project, right? And then you're not going into a project and looking at all the tasks and stuff like that. You just ask your AI, it's able to go fetch it, and it tells you, hey, this project is at this point, the next step is this, and here's the current blocking task, right? So that is the knowledge retrieval and search. And that's where really where, from a professional standpoint in the industry, that's where a lot of professionals should be spending most of their time, right? Because we do spend a lot of time researching where the knowledge, right? And searching for the knowledge. And well, how are we going to do it this time? How are we going to fix it this time? And that's very important. And then number four, where everybody is looking at this, is AI code assistants. This is exactly that. It helps us software engineers, developers code and find bugs and fix and create testing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge
It has
accelerator.
it has helped some Christians like me to think that we can code, but you still need a professional guidance to go through your thought process. I thought and there are some things that are easy to understand, but there's no way that if you are thinking scalability and business strategy, you always get support from an expert. So yes, it has helped you,
Uh,
but there's no way I'm close to know figuring out
yeah,
how
I
to
have
do
a
that.
very good example of this. We have a client that has been trying to work with us and getting advice for us for I want to say about a year now. And but he just they never had the funds or the capital to just, hey, do it, right?
Hmm.
And they really didn't have all the requirements together either, so we couldn't provide them a very precise statement of work. So that's where it was like time and material, and that's where the pricing was kind of scary and stuff like that. But and we actually won that client recently, and it's because of the AI code assistants. They're like, look, the only way I'm going to be able to actually get this done is by using AI to start building it. And they're not developers, they're engineer minded, right? They work in the engineering field, but they weren't computer engineers or developers or have experience, prior experience with building full scale applications. And they they spent 1 week building it with AI code assistants, and they got pretty far. Actually, they got real.
Impressive.
They Yeah, it was very impressive. We were very proud of them, and we're very, we're always open. We want people to be able to code and be able to build their things, and that's, we encourage everybody to be able to build their own things. Um, and it's not sustainable for the business as a long-term vision, right? You as the owner need to be focused on the vision and
Focus.
direction and
Hmm.
leadership. And that's kind of why you have CTOs and CISOs and all the technical folk on your team to be able to take care of all that, right? That's what their passion is for. Their passion is to build your vision,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where, anyways, they built it. They spent a week. They did a meeting with us, and they're like, "Look, here's version one," and um, it was very impressive. We loved that they what they did. We love the initiative. We love the hustle, right? We love the effort. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there was very clear, um, it was very clear that it was done by AI, and that there lacks some experience there, right? The structure, the frame. Again, we've spoken about frameworks, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now the AI kind of created the framework, or maybe it wasn't incorporated into the conversations at all. Um, Also, the amount of time that was spent to build the same thing was kind of a lot as well. So it was very time consuming. Imagine as a developer, you're building a project and you're trying to build it through prompts. So you write your
Mm-hmm.
prompt, you get the feedback, you get the output back, and then you're like, no, 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 that's not what I meant. And then now you're trying to correct the prompt
Yeah.
to get the right output as to what you want. Um, so the AI code assistants are just that. They're again, AI is a tool,
Tool.
right?
Yeah.
So if you put the tool in an expert's hand, they're going to be able to do wonderful things with
Exactly. They're your
it.
helper.
Exactly. And it will, and of course it's a tool, right? So even if it's apprentice, an amateur, or a
Mm-hmm.
hobbyist, they
Mm-hmm.
will be able to get really far, or at least a lot farther than they were able to do it without it,
Yeah.
right?
Enhancing.
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
enhance, it's going to enhance them regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there is a clear differentiator.
Yeah,
You're
of
gonna,
course.
and that's what happened here. He got to a point where it was no longer able to. Number one, the project was just way too big to be able to do in one with AI in the context window, right? So now the project's way too big for the context window, and for the code
Exactly.
assistant to be able to look at the project as a whole. Um, and so from that perspective, that was one of the faults, and I told him so. We've been speaking about it. He introduced me when he started using to the AI code assistants. And I was like, "Yeah, look, I understand. It's a great tool to prototype and stuff like that to try and help visualize everything. Um, but it would be really hard to try and build the entire application just with code assistants. It's just not there yet, right? The AI code assistants are not there yet, but um, that's where the future is heading, right? So in the future, you will have that. Now, the problem that happens now is now the whole infrastructure type of, like, you in order to use the code assistants the most efficiently, you really need to be experienced. You need to know infrastructure, you need to know framework, you need to know um, deployment processes, um, your services and libraries that you're going to be using, and that's essentially, we got the project now, and now that's what we're implementing into it, right? There's the whole security aspect. um, so yeah, you can definitely use AI code assistants to build anything that you're trying to do. But if you don't have a lot of experience, it's going to take you you're going to be faster than without it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's it's one of those things. It's one of those things, you do need an expert. Once you have an expert involved, um, you'll be smooth sailing from that perspective. But look, everything's a challenge. So if you're starting, it's going to be a challenge. If you're a medium, you, you know, a mid-level software engineer, you have your challenges. If you're a senior engineer, you're going to have senior level, senior engineer challenges. So everything is a challenge, right? So it's just a progression of, but I think these AI code assistants are going to accelerate that progression of for the developers. Like, there's yeah, Mark Zuckerberg said it
faster.
already, right? That Mark
Mm-hmm.
Zuckerberg said that, oh, AI is going to um, be at the level of mid software engineers. Well, what did he mean by that? He means that a junior developer will automatically have the tools and the know-how, or an
To go
assistant
to the
that
level.
is to go to that mid software engineer level,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that learning curve is just higher, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
lot, it's more parabolic. And so now you have, and Sam Altman just said it this week or last week, where the world of software developers and software engineers this year is going to change drastically. And it's because of that. It's because it's not just the level of entry has now really gone up, right? Because now the learning, the how to, it's like, yes, the foundations are extremely important, but what us developers have understood, and any senior developer is going to tell you the same thing, is that, like, pay attention to your errors. So the faster you get to your
Mm-hmm.
errors, and the faster you're able to focus on their errors, and then get a quick resolution as to, hey, why was this an error and what can I do to fix it, you are already accelerating the learning process for a junior developer. So that is the critical portion for AI code assistance, and that's why there's going to be a huge change in the software engineering space because of that. Not because, oh, AI can do more. Yes, the mid-level, senior level engineers, yes, they can do more, but now so can the junior developers, can also do so much more. So it scales everywhere. It scales
Mm-hmm.
at whatever developing or code role you are in.
Yeah. I think all of this is kind of valid, and it's also, it can be applied to almost every other industry, right? I would think you just gave a really great example of how on the software development, but it's also, you know, those thoughts, if you simplify them, they apply to marketing. Like, I read this little, in a nutshell, UI also fit into, they need to be thinking about other stuff too. I mean, it almost can apply to like everything. Like, everything is changing.
Yeah,
And
and that's where
yeah.
um, I know where we're gonna, like, from, as a developer myself, as an engineer myself, I have a vision as to where this stuff is gonna go, and my vision
Hmm.
is that we technology is a support function. It supports the business, it supports the company, it supports the operations, and so what's going to change is that the developers are now going to essentially have a more client centric facing um,
Exactly. Hmm.
a process and
Hmm.
interaction, and they're going to be more involved with the clients more, you know, because at the end of the day, who are you building it for? You're building it for the users, so you're going to spend more time with them to understand what it is that they want, how do they want it, and
Hmm.
that is
A
I think,
differentiator.
yeah, that's going to be
Uh,
a huge differentiator on
yeah.
your technology department.
Hmm. Yep.
That's how you're
So
going to, actually, that's how you're going to get all of the value of your technology department.
yeah, I think I covered some of that on the section of the why and the considerations, but let's just let's just go first, step by step. Like, I really like the next slide is, I got, these little boxes to me are like how I think. So I really hope that it translates to just about any other person to understand what does it what does it mean. It means how it has changed and progressed, and how it has been, like that word, fine tuning.
Yeah, and a
And
lot of, we go, I would define these. So you have a Gen AI, right? So this
yeah.
left one most is Gen AI, right? You have your prompt, you have a state of the art large language model, OpenAI, Gemini, Claude, um, Grok. Grok 3 just came out with a great release yesterday. Um,
Hmm.
so that's good. And then it provides you a response, right? Then you have what I would call more like GPTs, or more of
Hmm.
a agent model or agentic model, more of a use case built model of, hey, your job is to pass the butter, right? That's the system prompt.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the user says, pass the butter,
Yeah.
right? And then so the large language model says, oh, the system prompt is my purpose. I am supposed to answer. I have strict instructions, right? That's what the system prompt is,
Hmm.
or system instruction. And then you have the user prompt, which is the user instructions of, hey, I need to find where the butter is. And so then you have the large language model, which is now um, the algorithm, which is going to take the user prompt and the system prompt to provide the response.
Hmm.
And that response is going to be tailored based off, okay, what's my system prompt? What are my system instructions? So this is the perspective as to how it's going to review the user prompt. Where is the butter? My purpose is to pass the butter. They ask me where the butter is. Large language model now goes and fetches tries to collect um, a response from that answer for that answer. Okay, where is the butter? Well, the response is going to be, the butter is at X location. Do you want me to pass it to you? Remember, the system instruction is to pass the butter. And so it's going to try and to deliver its instructions. Not only is it going to hopefully tell you where the butter is, but it's also going to try and pass you the butter because that's part of its system instruction, right? So that's where that additional layer is, right? So you can shape how the user prompt, how, so essentially you're creating guardrails as to what the user can use the model for, right? And so if the user tries to do anything outside of passing the butter,
Hmm.
is going to say, hey, I can't help you with that. I'm not. I'm strict, and depending on the instructions too, right? So if I say you
Yeah.
are strictly only able to answer as to how to pass the butter, and so
Yeah.
now
So
that's would be the response.
like some of these example, I see how I don't use them that much, but there's the any Copilot, Atlassian, sort of everything that has a template, right? Anything that has something that has been already built, and then there's my idea, and then the system just does what I tell them, right?
Exactly.
So um, I never thought about, we don't really know how are we navigating between those three types of things, but we are, and this is where, for most part, most business owners should know that where is that stage, right? At what stage do they are, and where do they want to go? So I thought that was
Exactly.
really interesting when I was reading this.
Yeah, and a lot of folks think that, oh, it's intelligent, and in that
Hmm.
it's good. It should know that. It should know how to. If it doesn't know, it should know how to get it. Um,
And
No, it's
no.
still a machine, right? It's
Yes.
it has to go through that machine learning process to be able to learn how to do that, or we have to build
Hmm.
it into it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where the next step comes in with kind
Yes.
of this retrieval augmented generation, which is short for RAG, um, which now you have the system instructions, right? What are the instructions of this GPT, of this AI, right? Of this specific use case. Then you have what the user prompted. You have the large language model, which is now going to be plugged in with some RAG, right? So what is RAG? RAG is the ability to be able to search either documents, data, or things like that. And I'll talk about that in more detail here in the future slides. But essentially, now the language, the model is now has the ability to go and find specific
Mm-hmm.
data from
Mm-hmm.
documents, from a picture, from the internet, from your database, and stuff like that. And so that's where the enterprise data comes in. And so now it returns that relevant data back to with the user prompt back to the language model to now provide that response. So, hey, based off what I asked and based off of the
Mm-hmm.
information that I'm providing,
That you have. Yeah.
give me an output, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be in natural language, and then it's going to provide you that response. And RAG, it's RAG is a framework, is really that retrieval of that information, how it's going to do that, where is
Mm-hmm.
it going to pick that up, and so that's where RAG comes in.
Yeah. So, what is RAG?
Yes. Um, so without RAG, large language models only have the ability to know on the data that it is
Mm-hmm.
specifically trained on. Once you include RAG, then now that's where you have database, you have um, search engines, like you can go and search the internet to go pull that data. And so essentially is you are now providing sources to the model as context. So you have that request, it goes through our AI agents, which could be a large language model. And then we have these tools connected to the large language model. This is how these tools are part of the RAG process, right? You have the function calling, you can have extensions. And so from there, um, that's where you'll start doing like the Google search. And this is the retrieval portion of that. It will start retrieving based off what was
Everywhere.
requested,
Yep.
where no, not from everywhere, but from what it has ability
From
to.
the, yeah, you're
Yes,
right. Yeah,
yes,
from
from
the
the sources.
constraint data. Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
um, and so that's very important because oh, AI used to hallucinate so much, but then you included RAG, so now
Mm-hmm.
it's only able to answer based off of the data sources that it was provided.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have
Mm-hmm.
reduced hallucination. This is how you get, look, models are only trained on the past, right? You can never train, they have the ability, some models have the ability to go and search the web and retrieve,
Mm-hmm.
they have like a retrieval tool kind of built into the model. So that's how it's able to go pull the latest and greatest information. But for most part, you don't have any control as to how it does that. It just kind of goes out there and fetches it from the web, and then it'll pull that. So now you're really at the mercy of the developers and the scientists who built um, the tool, right? So now you have up to date information because now if you've implemented your data sources and your data and you've created that framework as to how it can go and fetch that data, then now your data is always going to be up to date. You also have a level of control. Essentially, you have full control by doing this, complete control. You have on its response, right? Because now you know what the request is, you know what the model is looking at and how it's looking at it, you know where the data is being pulled from for that up to date information,
Mm-hmm.
you know how to return it back, you know how you want to use that information. And so now that's where you have all of the control over the how that model will respond back to you. And that's where you have enhanced decision making. So
Mm-hmm.
oh, AI can only get it done 60% of the time. Well, how are you going to get it to 100, right? You need to be able to apply, you need to have this level of control to be able to get to 100, to be able to have AI, to be able to have agents do the task for you. You need to have this level of control.
Mm-hmm.
which is going to
Yep.
increase the trustworthiness. Also, if you're in a heavily regulated industry, that's how you're going to have regulatory compliance because you now know where the data is coming from, you know how the data is coming to the model, and you can have complete control to now govern the compliance of that data. And that's important. That's extremely important, especially if you're working in healthcare, if you're working,
Exactly.
and that's there's AI security around this as well, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
prompt injections,
I
hey, and stuff like that.
I like how the word just come out in almost every article that's out there now about the groundness of the response, because it just becomes these high level, well thought, and it's a good response. So a lot of us have been critical and have been reading about how funny the hallucinations have been, but we it's us creating the hallucinations too, because you didn't really put in a good prompt and you haven't added all of these other
The content, yeah, we didn't.
exactly. So I
It's a
like how
communication problem.
I, I just love how it's always a communication
It's
problem.
always a communication problem.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that word was really nice to to read. It's a grounded response.
Yeah, and I like grounding as well because it's it's it helps with the name of large language model, right?
Hmm.
It's a large language model for a reason. It's trained on billions of terabytes of data,
Yeah.
and so it has so much information. But what is it that you are trying to do with that that is very
Hmm.
specific to what you are trying to do? And you need to
Hmm.
essentially, you're trying to ground that large language model that has so
Hmm.
much information to just look at it from the perspective to
Hmm.
do the task. um, and that's why I like the grounding
Yeah.
um, definition on there. And so that's and this is how you get those grounded responses that are going to be tailored to you. That's going to be tailored to the
Your
use
business.
cases and to your
Hmm.
business and to that. And honestly, that's how you stop wasting money on AI. And hey, and you're thinking about how am I going to use AI and how is the I want everybody in the business to use AI,
Yeah.
and everybody's like
Yeah.
how, right? Well,
Yeah.
this is how you have
Hmm.
to think about it from a data perspective. What data do I need? What data do I need handy? What questions do I ask on the daily? And then also, is there anything that requires just a review? And then from that review, do an action. And then now you want the human to be in the seat where it's a approver, right? And doing higher
Yeah.
level things that AI can't really do, right?
Exactly.
Mostly the human aspect of the work, and the really nuanced things from the work where you might be a claims lawyer, and it's like I always used to tell the story of every claims lawyer or claims person remember the first claim where a death occurred, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
um, and the nuance, like how do you navigate that case, how do you navigate that portion? It requires you,
Prevention.
well, not even the prevention of that, but like it requires a human level
Yeah.
understanding of how you're
Hmm.
going to approach it, right?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
it's it's emotional. It's a death. It's something that is important. Like it's someone's family, and so
Yeah.
um, yeah, you want AI to help you give you all the information for that case and to help assist you move the case forward. Um, but your humanity of that is going to be really important as to how you handle that case,
Right.
right?
So why retrieval augmented generation, right?
Yes, that's the only way you're going to put your data in it. I don't want to say the only way. There's always other ways, but it's kind of the direction as to how um, most of these models have gone. Is that it's you don't need to give it all of the information all at once. It's just going to augment the data as it's needed, right? So you've asked a very specific question. The model, our tools are, and the model are understanding of intent. So now we have intent being involved. So now, hey, the intent is to access. We were talking about medical files, right? And say, hey, the prompt, the user prompt is, I want medical files on X client. Well, if we have the intent in the back end that when we're talking about medical files and
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about X, then now the model or our framework and architecture will be able to capture that intent to now
The
and go
retrieval,
search, to go
the
retrieve.
retrieval part. Yeah.
Yeah, go retrieve just the account information, right? Just just augments the model with the context and the information from just
Mm-hmm.
that little piece, and then provide it back into the model as context, into the context window, to now provide a very
A
specific
response.
response
There
to
you go.
the user's answer.
Yeah.
So this is what is done. So in preparation, um, right, so when you upload a file to ChatGPT or any of these multimodal models that have the ability to upload files or images or whatever you can upload to it, this is what happens. Number one, we need to collect that data, right? So it's going to get that data, it's going to collect it, it's going to review it. So it has to parse through that data, reviewing the data. Then it's going to segment the data.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to split this data? Is it going to be by chapters? Is it going to be by headings on the text? Is it going to? So that's very important as well, right? So if we start to understand the structure, that's where the importance of the structure of the documents are going to be very important, because now you need it to be organized in certain frameworks and standards so that it's able to segment it correctly, right? And this is
Mm-hmm.
where, oh, it didn't get the documentation right. It didn't retrieve the information that I wanted correctly. Well, that's where we need to start looking into the chunking and the embedding of that document and seeing how it was done, and then making sure that we change it so that when the next time we see a similar document that is organized and structured the same way, that it gets chunked the way that it needs to be done so that we can retrieve that data effectively. And then, so now once you've, and the embedding portion is now you have to create a mapping of the chunks of the segments and of how you've split that document, and now you create a mapping, a numerical mapping to that, right? And saying, hey, this is all chapter one, this is all chapter
Mm-hmm.
two, this is all chapter three, and so you've provided numerical. Um, um, it's called vectorization, and so essentially you're encoding the segments into portions of code so that, and you store that somewhere. That's where the storage options is. And so now that's where the runtime happens. So what happens when you have a query, right? So now the query is going to go search the storage, which is going to have um, the embeddings.
Ideally,
Yeah, right.
ideally, the
Yep.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to go search and say, hey, I need chapter one. So now
Mm-hmm.
you're going to go to storage and say, hey, the user is looking for chapter one. Now it's going to say, hey, it is actually embedding number one. Here's the vector of that, right? So here's the ID. And now it's going to provide that chunked, that segmented portion to the model. And that's where you have the summarization and the conversation piece, because now um, it's in the context window. So now it's important about your prompt engineering, your techniques, and also um, we can provide those chunking or those vectors as citations, right? Because now that's how you get citation. Are we going to do the chunking by page, right? So now It's like, hey, it's page 1 or page 5, depending on that, right? Because in a book, if you're, let's say we're going to rag a book, right? So you
Mhm.
have your prefix, you have your introductions, you have chapter 1 through all the way to the end, then you have your exits and the author bio and stuff like that. And so each of those you can segment by pages, or you can try and embed by pages. And then, anyways, I think is, is that clear, Laura, or am I speaking another
Yeah.
language?
No, we're in the runtime, and it's the only part that is missing for from now. It would be the hosting. Like a lot of clients would then after like how is it done requires all of these other pre-steps, like a pre-stage of how the 9 seconds to retrieve that information will actually take place in a very accurate way. So
Yeah, in
on the
time.
servant side, I think eh, how would you translate that to customer?
Yeah, so the serving side is um, really how it's the response, right? You want the
Yeah,
responses to be accurate, you want them to be fast, you
faster.
want them to
Yeah.
be um, reliable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you want them to be secure, right? So I would say it would be three or four of those things, and that's very important, right? A lot of people, um, the only reason you would do some type of hosting is because it's proprietary information. You don't
Exactly.
want you don't
Good
want to
point.
use the open models, the open large language
Mm-hmm.
models, because that would be a security risk, right? That would be a
Yeah.
risk to your business
Mm-hmm.
as to, hey, they could train my model, they can
Yeah.
train the model on my data if I use this publicly. Now,
Yeah.
all of the big cloud, the big AI companies, they have a tier where it's a business tier, and the majority of their business tier is, hey, we don't train on your data. You can use it as is, um, and you can build from there, right? And so that's very appropriate. But let's say you have a very specific use case, and you have, and it's
It
going to,
could be the public sector.
yeah, and you have to be HIPAA compliant. You have to follow these
Mm-hmm.
regulatory laws,
Help.
and you want it to be also very specific, and that's where hosting is very important, because now that's where you're going to build it on your own, right? So you
Yeah.
can do it yourself, or you can hire an expert to do that for you.
Yes.
And grounded
Expert
models
here.
always always are going to be better. It's specialized. I would say, instead of saying grounded models, I would say specialized models. These are
Mm-hmm.
specialized models. There are some open source specialized models out in the world that are specific to medical, that are
To medical.
specific
Yeah.
to
Mm-hmm.
law, that are specific to. So these models have been created specific to that industry or specific to the task at hand. Well, what
Mm-hmm.
happens if those specific models aren't providing you the right results? That's probably when you would try to do it yourself, or get an expert to try and build it on your behalf. And that's where we can come
Mm-hmm. For small business, we have a use case. Hopefully, I'll be able to show the walkthrough that we made uh, for the chatbot that we'll create. And I can't speak any more than just that, but hopefully we'll be able to translate that into a use case that we'll share with the audience
in.
soon,
Absolutely.
the next
Yeah.
month.
Yeah, yeah, we're building a lot of AI automations and chatbots, and really we're really doing a lot of this RAG stuff to build, connect to databases and pull the data, and we've got a really good methodology to do it. And so why, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the core functionality? What is it trying to do? So that's really what you have to consider. Why do you? Not everything requires AI, right? There's coding that has been around for many years. that, hey, it's a set
Doesn't
in
need.
stone.
Yeah.
It just requires set in stone logic,
Yeah.
and you're good to go. And
Hmm.
I've had these conversations with a lot of businesses where they're like, hey, I just want you to use AI for this. And I'm like, it doesn't need AI. We just can just create logic. It's an if this or this, and that's it, right? Like we could just create
Yeah.
write a few lines of code to build it out. It doesn't really need AI. It's going to be cheaper that way. You don't need to pay for all these tokens. You don't need to pay for the AI cost. There's no real intelligence that's required. It's just black or white, right? Where AI is really needed is where it's not black or white. It's gray. It's shades of gray, and it's a spectrum. And
Hmm.
that is really where AI is starting to do a lot of our a lot of tasks for us, right? Um, it could be this, this, or this, or this, or this, or this, depending on this, or this, or this, or this, or this. And that's really a model, right? That's what these statistics models do. They do a prediction as to, hey, what does, based on the input, what is it most
Hmm.
closely aligned to? And that is a very important why. Then after that is, do I have enough data to really
Hmm.
pull this off? So um, we and in most cases a large language, we don't need a lot of data, right? If we're talking about the gray gradient of, hey, it's a gray area process and it requires a lot of nuances, a lot of large data models, they probably have a lot of data on this, and you can just use a large language model. um, and then now, but that's only going to get you, like I said, up to a certain percentage of the way there,
Hmm.
because it's your business, it's nuanced to what you guys do and how you guys do it. And so now that's where you need to go, probably get more data, or you start need to bringing in some of your real time or up to date data so that it now can do those extra percentages and provide you a greater input, right? And we're in the nature. I think the added value goes back to the why, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
does is
I
it going
was
to make your
more,
business different?
yeah, but I was more into I don't want to get too competitive, but there's always that added value that you provide to clients if you're using AI in a very specific way, like retrieving any information, handling because this could be a lot of information all at once, and maybe one person can't really do it. And so if you're helping that user to retrieve certain information from all of the filing, I think that you're giving yourself value to your specific transaction. So at core is more like, I do this differently and I want to serve you that way. So I don't know, that's where it's differentiator type of thing for
Yeah, I
businesses.
mean, it's the I think, like we do in all of our methodologies before we start any project, is, hey, what's the value? What is
Of
this going
course.
to replace, or what is this going to augment, and what's the time or dollar value of that?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the research comes into play, right? Because um, it goes, I think the research is important to all of these, because this everything that we do is going to take time, it's going to take effort. And so, are we doing the right thing? Are there current technologies or services that are already doing this stuff and that can do it? And once we see, okay, it's going to cost X amount and X amount of time to build this, has someone already built it for a
Hmm.
fraction of the price, or for, that's a very key differentiator. Has someone done this? Because if no one's done it before, that could be a very key differentiator to your business.
Always. Yeah.
It's always going to be, because that's going to be, you're now cutting edge. You're doing things that no one else is doing,
Hmm.
and that can differentiate your business. Then you have KPIs. everything that AI touches should have KPIs. How often it ran, how much time it saved each time it ran, how much money it saved each time it ran, how often it's run, how many times it's run. All of these things need to be measured, and the impact, because that's ultimately the impact that it's going to do to the bottom line, right? It's either taking away cost or taking away time or adding time, providing time. So
Yeah.
these are things that need to be measured.
Yeah. So I think that we're missing one big slide about how AI is powering and changing the operation model for, all of these industries, think. But we can wrap it up because we're in the hour.
Yes.
So maybe we should cover this on Thursday. Uh, like,
What's
yeah, because
left?
this is the mindset, the operation model on all of these industries, and I put on some examples and how it can go wrong. So we can cover this on Thursday.
Yeah, I get. So what Laura's saying is that there's a lot more to cover, and we don't have enough time.
Yeah,
Um,
we don't.
yeah. So just, I guess we can stop here, and this is where we'll pick up on Thursday. Or do we have any questions in the chat? Let me check it out. No, no questions. No, no questions. Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you guys for listening. I wonder if I can quickly just get to the end of the slides. So thank you guys for listening to us today. Um, if you guys have any questions, you can email us here at info@ebdevtech.com, or you can go to our website at ebdevtech.com. And we hope that you learned something new. And thank you guys for listening. Please like, follow, comment, interact. Let us know what you think about these series. Give us suggestions about what type of uh, topics you guys would like to talk about. And so until Thursday, see you then.
See ya.
All right.
Listo.
Listo.
Bueno,
That
gracias.
was a lot.
No, no